Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Asian American Teen Podcast. And today we're going to be doing something different. We're just going to have a little open conversation between the three of us in the room today. And we're just going to be talking a little bit about Asian American teen issues that we've been facing. So I'm Jack, your host, and I have with me Al and I have Haley. These two are going to be the guest
Hello.
speakers for today.
Hi.
Yeah. You guys could introduce yourself if you want, but cause you got like
Yeah,
maybe they
I'm
don't know your
I'm
voice.
new. I'm Haley, and yeah, we're just here for an open conversation. I'm excited to yap it up.
I am Ali. I am the executive director of the Bitter Melon and really excited to be in the first podcast with all the kids. So thank you for having me.
Okay, so I'll say a little something, I
All
guess.
right.
Okay.
Um, I think, yeah, so we know as of now, David Imamura is doing a lot of work to try to implement API history into Westchester curriculums and, eventually, hopefully one day, with the collaboration of a lot of organizations, that can become a reality across the country and maybe one day across the world, about just Asian history in general. And I think, in my personal opinion, in America, in our communities, our history education is, I mean, it's not only just limited for API history, but really history for a lot of POC or minority groups in general. I mean, how long did it take us to have a semi comprehensive curriculum around slavery? And even till this day, like, I go to a private school and our civil rights education is, I would say, nowhere near as comprehensive as it should be. It's either rushed because we're trying to focus on AP United States history, or it's rushed because we spent too long on the Cold War or the World Wars, which are very important. But I think there's ways in which we can organize curriculums for students to learn what they're most interested in different courses, or even just to spread it as evenly as you can. And it's not really a competition like that. You can never have enough for everyone, enough spotlight for every group, minority group. But at the same time, I think, like, there has to be a better way than how it's structured now. Like,
I mean, so last Sunday we had co-sponsored an event with um, or for Make Us Visible, yeah. And it was so fun. The Westchester County Legislator David Imamura being there and being able to meet with other organizations that see the value of Asian American history being included in the school curriculum, and having the panelists, the amazing students from Scarsdale, Chappaqua, and private schools, like, all show up and talk about their experiences and why the exclusion of Asian American history has been so challenging for them, because when they're not seen, they're othered, right, in the school systems. So it was really meaningful for, I think, us to be a part of that event and also see the work that's going on right now and, like, how we can continue to make it better for Westchester's school system to be more inclusive.
yeah, I think it's definitely hopeful, because a lot of the time, like, we don't really have time for that hope just because we were talking about this earlier. But, the stress of just being a high school student or the stress of being a teenager in America, let alone one of the most competitive and, you know, competitive counties in the country. It's hard to try to see the bigger picture, which is, what is the overall education I'm getting and what are people after me going to receive as well.
Well, so it was really interesting because you guys were mentioning earlier that, like, Westchester is one of the most competitive school districts in the country, which
It is.
I
Yeah,
did not know
I think
that.
so.
That's, like, so crazy. And, like, even you were saying about, like, the science fair, that, like, it's like, what did you
For
say?
sure.
The
Like, we have
STEM.
the biggest we have the biggest like regional science fair competition in the world. Like the Westchester Science and Engineering Fair, like, had over 700 projects this year.
So like,
Like it's yeah.
you know, like when you guys see how competitive it is, and then I think there's like so much about this, right? That first of all, you guys are in this competitive environment, school system, and then on top of that, you're also like trying to fight model minority myth, which makes you guys like seem as if this is all expected. Like you guys are meant to do well and win science awards and like,
Yeah.
you know, so
It's
like
normal, honestly, at this point. It's like it's like, okay, like you got a grant from the mayor. Okay, like I got it last year and then some. Like it's that.
but then it all gets invalidated, right? Because it's just like, yeah, well, you're Asian, so like, you know, you didn't really work for it, right? So like how do you guys navigate like the competitiveness, the stereotyping, and also still be your authentic self?
I think it very much depends on just the resources that you have available to you. Because I have a lot of Asian friends. Most of the Asian people that go to my school I know of and I'm close with just because of our personal experiences. And, you know, things that we've been through that we can really bond over. And, but I also think that there are definitely differences in our experiences just socioeconomically, just our history of how long we've been at this private school that is K through 12. I think all of those factors really play into what you have in your hands to be able to help yourself. So, I mean, if you go to a school in Westchester, most likely it has more resources than schools that are in the inner city, and you're able to hopefully have a guidance counselor that you know is a little bit more personable than most in America. But then if English isn't your first language, then what? And then if English isn't your parents' first language, then what? So it's layered and it adds so many complexities. And me personally, my parents are not English speakers. They only speak Korean and a little bit of English, and so I feel like that barrier has definitely acted as something that I am still kind of, you know, dealing with to this day, that you can't really talk about to other people, even if they are minorities in your community, just because there is still a complexity of language access that is different. So it's complicated, and I think it's like very case by case basis.
Yeah, I think that the generational thing is like a huge thing for a lot of second generation Asian American students that are Americans with immigrant parents, right? And like being able to even have conversations with parents, like it's kind of like the world is against you, right? This, like, you're not represented in school, like with your identity. Your parents are like, you know, get your stuff together, like, come on, you need to like perform here, and like, and then there's stereotypes around that, like tiger mom and all that stuff, right? So like, it's just like the second generation kid is like, holy smokes, like how am I gonna navigate all of this? It's tough, right? Like, you have some stories like from
I
your
mean, like,
experience.
Yeah, wait, but like what do I talk about? What do I talk about?
I mean, like how competitive it was for you. I mean, like,
Oh.
yeah, like.
Well, yeah.
Like, I remember when I first met you, yeah, like, you were.
I mean, like now it's like senior year was like I think my easiest year of high school.
Well,
But,
now
like,
that you're
back then
in
it was
college,
like
yeah.
back then it was a lot like more different. That was also like yeah, cuz my science research, like I think when you talk about like winning an award, like you can just say that you got this award and it's like, you know, it's just like a title, but like it doesn't really tell you like everything that the person did, because I know that in my like 10th grade summer, like I was basically like not a normal high school kid for like 3 summers straight. Like I never went anywhere like on vacation. I just stayed in my home like doing research because like my parents like really got mad if I didn't, basically. So I think like 10th grade summer, I probably spent like 600 hours in the lab over the summer. I was doing like 40-hour weeks like in the lab, like 50-hour weeks. And then 11th grade summer, I was also like another 300 hours. Yeah, so it was like, it's like a lot of work that I don't know, like, I don't know where I'm going with this.
So you
But
know,
it's like,
the
it's
thing is that, like, one of the
stories,
things
yeah.
that one of the other students said that like really hit me was at the events was that, you know, like people like just kind of like push aside like the fact that, you know, a kid will just because they're Asian, like they'll become valedictorian or whatever, right? And they're like, oh, it's because they're Asian, but they have no idea that that kid has sacrificed their literal like every part of their joy to become that valedictorian. And it's not even because they wanted to be valedictorian necessarily. Sometimes it's because there's somebody else higher like authority in the household that is like, you better, you know, like.
But I also think it's that silent pressure, because this is case by case again, but a lot of the times it's not like your parents deliberately saying, if you don't do this, I won't love you. Like, obviously, most parents won't do that, I hope. But I think a lot of it is those little things that you can tell when you're a child of a parent, where it's if you do X, you can feel that shift in their emotion or their like little tone towards you that switches. And as a kid, I think we condition ourselves to be so responsive to our parents that like we might not realize that we're doing it, but subconsciously, the things we find joy in become convoluted and intertwined with what they feel are like is joyful. And you know, of course that intersects with being Asian, where culturally they have different standards of what success is. So I
think that's
Yeah.
so interesting because, like, I never really thought about it, but basically what you're kind of making me think is that basically kids just want to feel a sense of approval and acceptance and love from their parents, like in that unconditional way, right? That sounds like somebody, right? Like,
Yeah.
we
Did
just
you enjoy that? Like, did you enjoy your research?
Well, while I was doing research, like, not so much. Like, there's times, of course, where I got, like, good results and it made me happy, but, like, for the most part, it was just, like, a drag, I think. It's, like the part where I say it, like, where I would say it paid off, like, where I think it was worth it, is, like, when I got to go to science fairs. Like, I got to go to, like, I got my paper into NeurIPS, and it was a really exciting week at New Orleans, and then I got to go to New Mexico, and I got to go to LA, so, like, that's, like, the good part, I guess, when you get to do like, when you get the results you want. But even then, that's, like, I represent, like, maybe top, not even 1%. Like, I'm, like, top 0.5% for being able to go to all this stuff. So, like, if you think about, like, all the kids who have done, like, you know, who maybe their parents are pushing them in the same situation, but then they don't get these results, like, I think it's a lot, like, it hurts a lot more. Like, I'm in a place where I have all these experiences that I think I can say it's worth it.
But I think like even with that privilege, I guess, of like winning, I mean, it doesn't really take away the fact that like you put in like hours, like hundreds
I did
of
put in,
hours.
I did put in
Yeah.
hours and hours, but, like,
Oh,
I
yeah,
I
like
would
the
say that,
people,
like the people who
yeah.
put in that time and didn't get it,
yeah.
like imagine, like, I'm, like, if I were in the situation where I put in all those hours, but then I didn't get it, like, that's the type of situation where I would think, like, yeah, that's where, like, you start to really beat yourself up. That's where
well,
it
you
sucks.
sacrificed your entire freaking childhood.
True.
I mean, yeah,
How
but,
did
like,
you not beat yourself up? Like what like
no,
kept
I
you going?
like, well, like, my parents, like, yelling at me, but, like, aside
You
from
see,
that,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
like, but yeah, I mean, that is also, like, it's a weird situation with me, because I also think that, like, them forcing me to do all of that, like, it is like, no, it's kind of like what you were saying, where it's like, now my interests are in AI and computer science, like, but I do, like, enjoy it, like, whether or not that's, like, because I know my hobbies in, like, when I was young used to just be, like, collecting a lot of data and, like, spreadsheets about, like, you know, following sports and whatnot.
My childhood hobby
Like-
was spreadsheets. I'm
Like,
sorry.
it kind of was, like, just,
Yeah.
like, gathering data and stuff and, like, looking for, like, that's what I
But
remember
don't
doing,
think you
but,
had
like,
joy in it because when I met you, like you were definitely not in a state of joy.
Like while I was doing my research, yeah, I was.
Yeah,
But like that, yeah.
I think you really should.
I think it's possible for it to have become that though, because it's probably all you've known for so
yeah,
long. Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
So like I feel like your experience is like really one of those experiences that a lot of Asian Americans who feel the pressure from parents to like perform can relate to, and I think that that's a risk. Like I think it's a risk when parents put so much pressure on a child to perform that like if they don't succeed, even if they're trying their best, then they just feel like they're worthless.
Yeah.
And
It's a huge risk. And
Yeah.
I like you were
I
saying,
think,
like you put in so much work, but you also got lucky for being
Yeah.
those few that.
And I also think that like the payoff doesn't like negate the like the drawbacks like entirely, because like I'll still have like the feeling in my head, even if I have all these like trophies, but I'll like think about it in my head that like, oh, maybe I'm just like got super lucky and my research doesn't actually mean anything. Like I think it is like a permanent, I don't want to say permanent, but it is like a lot longer lasting than just like the research, because it applies to other stuff as well. Like I know that I've like when I went to ISEF and whatnot, like I did see people who were a lot happier who just did it, did the research on their own, and then
But that's
they're,
different.
they're chill. But like that's a different.
I
I know, but like that's
they did it out of their own joy.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is that like I wish that were the case for me. Like I wish
Right.
that happened to me
Right.
as well. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's yeah, and I feel like a lot of times when we're talking about like API issues and like whatever, like the stereotypical tiger parents and like like, oh, everyone's telling me I'm good at math because I'm Asian. I feel like people get confused and saying like, oh, so you don't want to be good at math, or like, oh, you don't want to go to ISF. Like, no, like it's not that like people don't want to do these things. It's the fact that people want a choice of whether they want to or not, because it's that thing. It's like you said, like you saw so many people that were genuinely happy doing this work, but they were happy because they wanted to and they chose to probably. And so it's that difference, like you just need to give the resources like for people to choose, like
Yeah.
without choice, like what can you do really?
But I think it's really tough, right? Because when you're a minor and you are
How
born
much
to,
freedom do you have to
yeah,
do
like
that?
your
Yeah.
parents are your parents, and I think that's what's really like challenging for a lot of kids who want to have choice, but they literally have no choice. Like you have to just kind of do whatever your parents tell you, and then like. Can I share like what you told me that your ultimate plan was when you were a sophomore?
You had an ultimate plan?
Ultimate plan?
Yeah.
I don't remember actually.
Your plan was to just save up as much money as possible as soon as you graduate from high school and go to college, like as far away as possible. Save up your money and then just like leave your family forever.
Really? I actually don't remember. saying
Yeah.
that. I don't remember.
Like
Oh my
you
God.
wanted
I told
to
you
like
this?
yeah, that it was when we were doing the podcast. Like,
Soft?
I
but
don't
it was like
remember. I don't
privately. It was
remember.
privately.
Oh, privately. Okay.
But it was like at that time period.
Yeah,
when we were doing
yeah,
the original
I know.
podcast. And feel free to just like cut this part
Well,
out. if you
no,
want.
I don't remember it, so I don't really
Like,
care. Yeah.
But like
I
at
think
that
it's
time, I was like,
crazy.
holy snap! Like this.
I
I
mean-
never told you that. So
Yeah,
if he
yeah.
listens to this, he's gonna be
Well-
like, "What? My kid was gonna like abandon me?"
I mean, but you don't feel like that now, but I think that just goes to show like how much can change in a short period of time.
If
when
it
you're
goes
our
well.
age. Yeah.
If it goes well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like if things don't go well.
It's also like I think it's hard to do reflections like this, like because I know that my behavior at that time was influenced by like how I was raised in like elementary school. I remember a little bit about what elementary school felt like, but I don't actually remember because like I know that like my parents like I think it's the case with a lot of like Asian American like second generation immigrants, but like it's like the influence that your parents have doesn't start when you're like in like high school and everything starts mattering. It happens in like elementary school.
Yeah.
So I know
And
that
you
my
can't
parents.
remember that.
Yeah, you can't remember that, but you
Yeah.
can remember the effects. So like the effects are the reason why all of this stuff in high school happened, but I actually like don't remember like what happened back then.
remember your childhood?
I do. I actually do. Yeah. I don't know.
Like how far back? Like do you remember when you were like going to preschool for the first time and
I
like your
do.
parents were like putting pressure on you
But
in
I
any
think
way?
for my experience, I don't know, like I remember a lot of it because I think there was a lot of trauma sprinkled everywhere through it. So like you just remember it like but I remember also things that were not traumatic, like just like sticking a straw in the sandbox because I saw another kid do it and suck
Yeah.
into the sand and
I don't know if there's like meaning to like what we remember, but I think it's interesting because I think it varies. A lot of people that have been through like traumatic or like semi-traumatic childhoods, either I feel like don't remember most of it or remember most of it. There's not really an in between, and like it's interesting because like you're saying you remember most of it, but like I don't, and I'm closer to like being like a toddler and like my childhood years, and maybe it'll come back, but like it's so just surprising to see like how it's so different because I kind of remember those like simple things like being at the beach, but and like going to like Spa Castle in Queens.
oh my god, it's so much fun.
Yeah, and doing like the donut heads with the towels. But like I don't really remember like the traumatic things, but I do like at the same time. It's very weird. It's like a muffled memory almost.
Yeah, I think that like it also could probably be like when you see photos and videos of your childhood, it can kind of maybe bring back some memories. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like I remember just a lot of random stuff from my youth, from really early on. Like I went to a Catholic preschool even, and I remember being given like grape juice. Like I remember being given grape juice from my like Catholic school as part of like the like services with mass and stuff and
Yeah.
bread and
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I remember like drinking like the wine for the first time for my first communion, and I was like, ew, like what is this? Yeah.
But again, I was also the only Asian kid in preschool, and I was called like Chinese or Chink, not Chinese. I was called Chink by another black kid when I was living in the Bronx. So when I was really little, I was like living in the Bronx for a little while, and I remember my mom saying, "No, we're Korean," and like all of those little moments. Like I remember when I was really little, also like our neighbors calling the cops on us because we're Buddhist, and the Buddhist emblem is the heart of Buddha, which is the swastika, and it looks like, you know, the swastika that the Nazi Germans used, which actually they culturally appropriated
Really?
from
Buddhism?
I don't know if it's directly from Buddhism that they, but because there were other East Asian religions
Yeah.
that used the swastika. So anyway, but it is from like
Right. And they just automatically assume because like you guys are what, quote foreign that like you guys were.
I don't know. Like I was way too young to understand, but I knew what the police were. Like, and when they showed up at the door, it was like really traumatic. Like, why are there cops at the door? And later on,
That is wild.
I realized like our neighbors had called the cops on us because they thought we were, I don't know, neo-Nazis or whatever. And then, so I have like a huge issue about being Buddhist in this country too, because like now it's like this like really cool like hippie thing, like cool trend, and
I mean, but we can do like a whole thing on like the way like religion and like government have been tied and like the fluctuations of that and where we are today is way different from where we were. And I think it's so interesting that it's like I feel like that traumatic experience for you is like it represents like everything of, you know, Asian American hate and like our history with American law enforcement, cuz that's not great either. And then again, it's like that, like, you know, you being assumed for, you know, another hate group when it's like something that was taken from your culture
it's like
originally. Like,
like
what?
that swastika sign
Yeah.
has been around for 10,000 years.
I had no idea. And that's the thing. Like, I'm
Yeah.
Asian American and I have a bunch of Buddhist friends, and I never known of this because they don't teach it. They say swastika equals bad because of obvious reasons, but like,
But if you go to like Thailand or Korea
and I've
or like a
seen
lot of
swastikas
you
everywhere.
see swastikas everywhere, and it's
Yeah.
like even a part of the architecture. You know, it's just a part
Yeah.
of the design, and like it's ridiculous that when you go to
We don't learn
like-
about this
yeah.
at
So
all.
I had this like very specific experience where I went to pick up like some random stuff from a community like like email, like they were giving out some free stuff, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go over, pick it up, and then I go to this random house, and in the lawn there's like, I don't know, like 10 Buddhas on the lawn, 10 different types of Buddhas, and I'm like, oh, maybe she's Buddhist, you know? Like, I was like, wow, you have a lot of different Buddhas here. I mean, that's like the Mahayana Buddha, that's like, you know, like happy Buddha, or like the big happy Buddha, and like I was like, are you Buddhist? And she's like, oh no, are you? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, I hope you're not offended. And I was like,
I hope is crazy. I'm sorry, that's crazy.
So I was like,
Yeah.
you know, I kind of am. Like,
Yeah. All right. I think that's, it's like, I mean, that their religion is just like a whole nother different level of disrespect.
but it's like culturally appropriated. Like
Right.
Buddhism is culturally appropriated by so many people in this country that,
Especially with like new way, like, I don't know, like health, but like, you know, people
yeah, like
all
yoga,
constantly saying,
like,
my head chakra, my
oh
heart
my
chakra,
gosh,
like,
yeah. And I'm
do you know what you're
like-
talking about?
But so, you know what's crazy is that like this is where I don't know how to like really address it, but like the swastika is seen as a hate crime, right?
Right.
Whereas like in the Buddhist culture, it's like the heart of Buddha,
It's like
right?
symbol of
Yeah,
everything that's driving.
yeah, or the
religion.
footprint of Buddha, right? And then like when I see like there's actually a word called like Jubu.
Really? What is
It's Jewish Buddhist, like, or Jewish people who like love Buddhism, or I don't know. That's apparently is a word for it. Have you ever heard of a Jubu? Anyway,
Jubu?
like someone just told me this like a year ago or so. But yeah, there's like a thing for like the Jewish community who's like into Buddhism. But I think it's like so interesting because it's because of the traumas of the Jewish community that the Buddhists are not even allowed to wear the swastika. And so instead, like, we're not allowed to embrace our full identity as Buddhist, like Asian Buddhists, but Jewish people can use Buddhism in the way that they want to. And I've met like some of my neighbors who like teach yoga or whatever, who are Jewish, and they have Buddha statues everywhere. But it's so ironic because I can't, it's because of the Jewish community that I can't even wear
Right.
the swastika.
Right. Right.
And yeah, so like I have a swastika necklace, a gold necklace that my mother handed down for me, and I'm not allowed to wear it.
Right.
I might get like
Yeah, then you might really get called out by
Yeah.
the police. I think it's so interesting that like I never really knew that there was like this history of like tension between the two communities. Because I mean,
there is no
know-
tension.
I mean,
I'm the
not,
only
like,
person that knows about
tension,
this. Like,
but,
I'm like alone on this one.
but like just like tension, not like socially, but just within like what this one symbol means and like how impactful it is to two communities and like who kind of like not wins in the situation, but who is like the recipient of the respect for that symbol, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, because socially it is just known as, in America at least, as like an anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic symbol. But I think the fact that like it is such a vital part of Buddhism, and we learned Buddhism at my school and Judaism, and we didn't learn of this very impactful symbol at all ever.
That's crazy.
It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like, how do I not know? Like, the heart of Buddha is the same thing as I just
So like, yeah, if you come to my house,
Wild.
I have a Buddha statue with the heart of
Yeah.
Buddha
crazy.
on like, it's really common to
Yeah.
have the swastika where the heart is of Buddha.
Did you learn about this?
In school, no.
Yeah.
No. I mean, like, I just found it out from, like, talking with friends and whatever, but, like, not in school. In school, I actually don't think we learn about much religion except for, like, I don't know, the basics in history class. But,
Like the big
No, I actually don't-
five, maybe.
yeah, I guess. But I actually don't think
the
we...
big five.
Yeah,
I actually don't
that's what
think
I'm
we
saying,
know a lot
barely,
about it, though.
Barely.
No, but, like, we're also a public school, so I don't think we teach, like, the
Religion
classes
at
don't
all.
teach religion, like, don't,
Religion, yeah.
like, explicitly talk about religion at all.
But I think if you don't talk about religion, you're missing like such a vital part of culture and history.
Especially in the U.S., like,
Yeah.
there's so
Are
many
you
different...
how many
It just-
times God is mentioned
It
in
just has, yeah, I know,
our
but it,
Constitution, like
I think it's also by law. I think it's determined in law. Like you know the
I mean, yeah, but I
the
think
separation of
right,
state and
separation of church and state. But this is where I'm gonna get
secularism.
a little bit annoyed, where it's like, if you really want church and state, have church and state in the places that really matter,
Yeah.
and not in education where you're just supposed to like teach people about when there wasn't church and state, and why like there are like religious, divides in our society that are also cultural divides. Like, how does religion impact that? Because it's not just a big part of my identity of being Korean is not just because I'm Korean. It's that I am a Catholic raised Korean who does not identify with being Catholic. That is a huge part of my trauma and my ethnicity and the people that I am surrounded with and the people that I probably am going to seek out in the future. Like, it's not, I don't think it's something that like we should pass over. And that's why I'm just so surprised that like I don't learn about something that is probably so impactful to somebody, or like you, like who's gone through an experience that is just very traumatic that has to do with this very important history. So it's like I don't see how like this is just so missed.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because I went to Catholic school like most of my life, like all the way into college, and
Right.
like from preschool up, and it's just like a few.
And you were raised Buddhist.
And I was
so-
raised Buddhist.
Yeah.
And so, but what's interesting is that like whenever I feel like insecure around like non-Asians or like white Americans, I just like throw down the Catholic school card like so fast. I'm not kidding, because I'm like, oh shoot, they're gonna like outcast me or whatever. Like if I don't like throw in something that's like
communion, I got that.
yeah, like I need to say something where
Yeah.
they're like, oh okay, she's like
she's cool. She's
yeah,
cool,
she's like mainstreamed and like
Right.
assimilated. She's
you
assimilated.
can't be too different. And this is the thing where it's like going to a private school is so interesting because I was expecting kind of like the public school life that Amy was talking about, where it's like these crazy kids with, in an affluent community. They are a little crazy, but there's cliques and there's groups, like there's a space for everyone somewhat, right? But I feel like going to a private school that is much smaller, I don't know, it's made me feel more exposed than I feel like I would have if I went to a public school in Westchester. And I think that extra level of like kind of extreme affluence that is kind of like rampant in just like our social standards, like what car do you have, or like do you like who's your private college counselor outside of school, or who are you flying into prom, and like are you paying for like are the guys paying for the girls' prom ticket? It's like just little things like that are very I think has made my experience in these more affluent spaces a lot more challenging and like felt almost like stripping and very I don't know, very like revealing, and it's forced me to address my identity, if that makes sense. And that's the thing, which I think a lot of people also get confused in these conversations about race, where it's not like the fact that we are Asian that we don't like, or we don't like the food that our parents make, or we don't like X, Y, and Z or the standards. It's the fact that we are forced to deal with it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like, I think when we're also second generation Americans, like I'm significantly older than you, but at the same time,
Not
like
that much.
thank you. Like our experiences are still like very similar,
Right.
and like the second generation experience of trying to navigate both like the culture that we grew up in our household, and then the culture that we were born into, which is being a part of the United States, like as an American, like what does it
So
mean?
what is my culture?
Yeah, so then we have
Yeah.
like this like a hybrid culture, right? That we have to navigate. Like I was straight up told that like I was Korean. In my household, I was never told like you're American. I was just told like you're Korean.
Yeah.
And then like in school you're told like you're American. You were born in this country, you're American.
Right.
And then like as a second generation kid, you're like, so what am I?
Right.
Like it never even occurred to me until I was an adult that I could be both. Like, oh, like when I met this one over here, like, and I asked him like, oh, where are you from? Like, he was like China. I was like, really? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
That was the funniest thing ever. I was like, no way, you're actually from China?
I definitely would have said that.
That
was
is so
someone else
funny.
did that.
Yeah, so then I was like, no way. And he's like, no, I'm not from China. And I was like, wait, what?
Because I feel like you rarely have like the space to be both ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was lucky though because at my Catholic church growing up, we had like this like Korean school program where it was just Korean Americans who were learning Korean together and then going to like God lessons together. So it was like, I mean, it was definitely not the healthiest space, but for everyone to like freely be themselves. But it was a space to be Korean American.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I mean, that if I didn't have those like weekly, hours like at all, I think I would be in a much different place in the way that I view myself, just because, I never saw people that looked like me in TV shows or the movies that I watched. And so the only really like reliance that I had on like validating myself were my friends. And that was just so helpful. And I can't even imagine like growing up in a place like Westchester where it's even more rare to have
But
that.
see, like that's like my problem though, is that like Asian teens, like we only like educate each other through peers, and they know just as much as we do when we're growing up. So like we're not getting that much information.
Yeah.
So it's a problem. Like we need more than just like our peers to self-educate, especially in the teen space. Like I think that it's funny because literally like that was my experience, and that's like your experience that you're basically mentioning right now too.
Yeah, no teacher was providing that.
It's hard to also because culturally they might not be able to relate to like our experiences.
But that's a problem that they're not educated enough to teach it. I mean, I think it's not really.
I think it's easier if
anyone's
there
personal
are
fault,
Asian
but-
American teachers, you know? I think we
heavy
need
on
more
that.
Asian American teachers. Hello out there. Like, we need more Asian American teachers. But I think this is also really interesting. Like, what would it look like if Asian American history and also, like, just other histories of other groups, like, if it was all included and we all did feel represented? Like, what would it make, how would it change the way we view ourselves?
It would change everything. I mean, I don't know how it is for you at your school, but at my school, it's a very, very old institution, but there have been teachers that have been there for over like 30 years, 40 maybe, and I don't have a single teacher that is not white. I have never had a teacher that is not white at my school, ever. There are no English teachers of color at my school.
Whoa.
There are no...
Wait, you don't even have like
No.
Hispanic,
No.
Black, nothing? What?
I will say our language department is majority people of color, but also guess why we have a majority of people of color, like, language department. Like, it makes sense, like, ethnically, culturally, language access. But in spaces like in English class when we're reading, like, The Bluest Eye, or we're reading, like, The Hate U Give, we need teachers of color. Like, this is what really frustrates me about these quote-unquote elite institutions and this elite, Westchester County. It's what makes you elite. Like, your education system, because it's lacking, your teachers, because they're not adequately trained for the communities that you're trying to serve and for the diversity that you're trying to advertise. There are just clear disparities that what is elite about this besides the money, and where is that money going? Because I also think this might be different school by school, case by case, but just a lot of cultures of schools are just not ready for these conversations. So it is going to take a while to like see that significant change like throughout the generations. But I mean, there needs to at least start with something, because look at the state of our history curriculums right now. Like, I had no idea about the history of the swastika and it lasting for tens of thousands of years, like, ever. And we did a whole unit on Buddhism. So
Oh my gosh. That's
so what's
sad.
happening?
Oh my God.
What's happening?
We were missed. Like, there's so much about like the history of Buddhism in America that like makes me so sad. But
And we know like none of it.
there's a book I
It's
highly
embarrassing.
recommend called "Be the Refuge." It was written by, I think her name is like Cheng Chi. and it's literally about the history of Buddhism in America, and it's like so sad.
I want to read that.
It's
Because I don't know.
highly recommended.
Yeah, I think like when it comes to school districts, like my school district, like I understand your point of view with history and like the faculty. I do think that's the case where in my school as well, because well, like I mean, where I live, our neighborhood used to be redlined, so there is also that history that's like um, there's just not many people of color in our faculty or in our students. I think that like when it comes to being elite and when it comes to like what makes a school good, I think that it's more the fact that the education system as a whole is outdated. I don't think it's like specifically like one school. Like I like from the perspective of the education system, like nationally, I think it's very correct to say that we are an elite community in Westchester. I think that it's just hard anywhere really to find a school that would have the teachers and the curriculum that we're talking about. I think like when I picture how like an Asian American studies class would fit in, I think it would probably be like a half year, like a one semester elective course. Like I think that like even that would be quite generous. I think when you have like my school district doesn't offer much classes aside from just like one rigid course. I think it would be very hard to even introduce like I don't know, like a business class or something. So I think it's like it's really just, you have to like it starts with the individual people and it starts with the teachers. I think it'll be very hard. It'll take a while to get like policy changes. I'm like I think I'm very grateful for the teachers that I've had in the English department in my school because even though they are all white, they have like tried to bring like color and into the conversation they've had. Like they tried to have us write reflections, but yeah, I like it's of course it's not the same. Like there will have to be a lot of change, but
I think a lot of these teachers are great and they're very well educated. I mean, there's no like argument about that. But I think it's just a matter of like, it's not like the level of like how good of a teacher you are, but it's just like what is most beneficial for kids to see in the people that are like teaching them and reading them.
I mean, like yeah, it like the change has to start like the change right now is happening at the personal level with like individual students, individual teachers, but I think in order for like an institutional change that will take a long time.
Right.
It's because it's also not just like the teacher, like it's just from the perspective of the school is one part, like the school chooses who to hire, the school chooses what their curriculum will be, but it's also on a larger level, it's like the socioeconomic status of like all marginalized people, the opportunities that they get to become to choose to become teachers, the opportunities that they get after they get their teaching degrees. That's something that is also
It's like that social thing too, because like as second gen Americans, like whose parent is going to tell you to be a teacher,
like
right?
yeah,
And
like I think
this
right
economy, like in America,
Yeah.
like
It's like all I've ever heard is like doctor, lawyer.
I've
like,
deliberately been told by my parents, do not become a teacher because like it's just they know the pay, they know the stigma, and that's also the thing where it's like, I mean, like who is conditioned to be those English teachers that are gonna talk to you about these topics? So yeah, it is gonna take a really long time, I think.
But you know what? That raises another point that it needs to be like things need to be better for teachers. Right?
Yeah.
The job needs to
It's
look more
crazy how like
effective.
if you want to fix one thing, you have to fix everything around it and more.
It's like all connected.
Yeah, and that's why it's like I forgot who said this. It was like this famous person said this quote where it's like the civil rights era never ended. Where it's like we mark it as like a point in time, like after the world wars and before the new millennia. But it's like, did it ever end? I mean, we just saw the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020. So like, what happened for those what 20, 30 years after the civil rights movement, like did they just go back? Like no, like it's just it's not linear, but it's also we haven't really come that far. I mean, I think in retrospect, because everything is connected, it gets I would say like really overwhelming trying to think about all of this at once. But
I just think that like also if we like had maybe it doesn't have to be like a specific course that's like, you know, Asian American studies, right? But like if it's just like incorporated into regular American history, because Asian American history is just American history, right? If it's just like incorporated into the regular history class, like then everybody gets a better collective understanding of what America was founded on, how it was created, right?
Yeah,
Like-
that's also like that. In my opinion, that's also difficult because, say, if you incorporated that into AP US history, like there's no way teachers are going to be able to teach everything in time for the AP, for example. And how are you going to convince?
Well, that's because
College
the
boards
AP
and-
exams are based on
Yeah,
like, but if the
that's
AP
thing,
exams
like,
also change, like it's like well,
Yeah.
like
yeah,
she
but
was
that's the
saying, it's
thing,
like
they
all.
don't- It's hard. Like I know I read somewhere in the past where whenever new information is released, it takes around 25 years for that information to be fully incorporated into industry, and it takes 75 years for it to be fully incorporated into education. Like if you start an Asian American movement now that gets like popular, like very, very popular nationwide, it will take 75 years for
Wait.
that to show up in classes.
but I
According to
think
I just read that as like a general
if that is
rule.
a
Like,
general
imagine,
thing,
like, how
I
long-
think it's worth it because I mean
yeah,
let's-
I know,
yeah.
but it's just like you.
Wait,
like
I just want to let you know, Jack, that they're already piloting the Asian American history in
I know,
middle
but
school.
like think about like
that's not
no, but
75
like
years from now. That's like now.
no, but like think about like how long it will take for like something like Asian American history and like more like history of marginalized groups to become like a socially like normal thing to
Right.
discuss in your
I
curriculum.
mean, yeah,
So
I
think
think
about
like
how many
the social
generations that
stigma is
takes.
definitely going to take much longer.
Oh yeah, if you're talking about like
Yeah.
the actual like
Like
impact
yeah,
on
like
society,
It is gonna take
when you're
much
talking
longer.
about like when you're talking about major change, like
Mhm.
I think it's important to take a step back. Like we want to do as much as we can now, but it's hard. Like you have to expect that you're not gonna see
Yeah.
changes.
It is
This why North
hard.
Koreans lock up like 3 generations.
What? I think it's definitely hard. That's the thing where it's like as teenagers, like we know this, like we know it's gonna take a long time, and we see that like the past few generations has not left it easy for us, and like it can feel kind of like doomsday vibes, literally like. And like I know people and like me personally like having genuine mental health crises and you know like real dilemmas like internally because of the world around them. That is not a surprise. But I don't know. I think in what I've like me personally like have learned from like the people that I've met that are fighting, like we have come a really long way. Like we have and we haven't, but in the places that we have, I like am confident that it will be impactful because even like going back to like when we were going to talk about the LA riots in the late 1800s against Asian Americans, this has
Late 19.
The LA
LA
one?
oh no, that's the LA riots. Sorry, it happened in Los Angeles, but it was the Los Angeles modern day Los Angeles area, but it was 1871.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
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 Lynching?
Oh yeah, the mass lynching.
That
Yeah,
happened in San Francisco.
The lynching was.
Oh,
in-
was it?
Yeah, the lynching
Yeah.
was.
San
yeah.
Francisco.
Yeah. San Francisco is like a really big community.
Yeah,
For.
but that was 1871.
I think so. There was a
Okay.
lot of riots in
Right.
California though. There was,
Yeah.
So there was probably
Yeah.
riot in LA as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was.
I think
like,
I think I read about one in like modern day Los Angeles, during like 1871. I
there
believe.
probably was. I mean, there were riots
Yeah,
all
and
over.
it was I think one of the largest mass lynchings in American history, and like I think instances like that make me, I don't know.
I think
Then
the
that
mass
was
lynching
then that was
in San
well
Francisco,
yeah San
though.
Francisco was not that it was the largest mass lynching.
Yeah,
That's
That's crazy. The
mass
largest
lynching.
lynching of in American history
Yeah.
happened in San Francisco, and it was of Chinese people,
Yeah.
not like I know not to compare, like it's so
Mm-hmm.
dumb, but like
It's usually associated with like African American history.
right, slaves.
Yeah, and
like,
of course there were thousands of people like
oh,
impacted.
I want to correct my word, not
Yeah.
slaves, enslaved people, enslaved people.
Yeah. There were, and even into like the Jim Crow era, like we know the story of Emmett Till. We know the story of so many victims from anti-black hate. But I think it's so interesting the story that we choose to tell ourselves, like through the American like historical.
Well, that's all we
education
know
system.
because that's all we were taught.
But that's the problem. Like of that is the only thing that we are taught, and it's not to like compare and contrast, but it's to say the truth.
I want to look up this this lynching thing because I didn't know about the lynching in Los Angeles in 1871. I'm
There's
so
one in
curious.
LA.
Yeah,
I'm
can you
pretty
look
sure
it up?
they're-
Like, we
So
should
San
we need to like.
Francisco as well as LA in the
I
same
think
year.
so.
That is
because
so
for
interesting.
LA, I think they said like one of the most. It wasn't like the most. Let me see the article.
Wow.
I mean, it was all over California because
Well,
of
all
gold
over
rush,
yeah, all over the West Coast actually. There were riots,
yeah.
like just chasing out Asian American
The
communities.
Los Angeles Chinese Massacre of 1871.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so wild.
Yeah.
There was a mass lynching there? That's
yeah,
so sad.
19. 15 were hanged, 19 in total were killed.
Yeah. It's one of the largest.
Wow. I think so. The one in San Francisco
Is the largest? How many people were
I think
killed?
I thought it was 20 something.
Whoa.
one as a kid too. It was really sad.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, that kid must have been so scared.
I think it's just crazy
Wait,
because
are we getting? No, we're probably.
these
we're getting
lynchings were also.
It is only LA.
I just think it's like so horrible. Like
No, I think it's only.
like when
It's only LA.
There was no San Francisco one. I think.
wait,
Oh.
so this is the one?
This is the one. I'm looking up where it was, but this is the LA one. 17, Los Angeles.
Wait, let me see the tree because I actually remember the image. Or can you just pull up the image? Where's the tree? Well, can you just is there like Google Images? Or...
Tree.
I think it's crazy though because like at least like the lynching that the LA one of the largest, the 1871 one, it happened because what like 500 like white men like invaded like literally ran into this Chinese like quarter in the middle of Los Angeles.
So
and
like at that time period,
murdered everyone.
like at that time period there was like hundreds of riots
Right.
like all over the US just like chasing out all of the Asian immigrants like everywhere.
And I just think that it's insane. I mean, we learn about this a little bit in A-Push, but I think all I really learned,
Memorial around the tree.
Wait, how is like how are we not finding? Why do I not have service here?
I think it-
This
I
is
think-
so interesting. Like,
wait, I don't know what you learned in your
I think she's correct. It is LA because I remember seeing. Oh, sorry, San Francisco because I remember seeing this news article. This Wikipedia article that like at the time that 17 people was 10% of the Chinese population in San Francisco. I remember
Wow.
reading that.
But it was San Francisco where because I remember also they were mentioning that the tree like so I know how the tree looks like which is so sad but
Yeah, it was definitely like, all over the West Coast. Like, I think it was definitely
but so the
yeah.
tree that was used to lynch it was just one single tree that they lynched all these
Really?
people off, and that tree is still there. And I don't think it's a tree fault. I would hate to see this tree get chopped down because of what.
But they should
humans
at least
did.
like commemorate the tree
Yeah.
for
No, but they
something.
definitely do it, but so
Yeah, they said that there's
they
a
didn't.
memorial around it.
Did they put a memorial around it?
Well, I mean, here's the winning design for LA's memorial to the.
This is for LA, but for the one in San Francisco, like that one, they built a highway around it. They didn't chop it down. They kept the tree.
They built a highway around it.
Yeah, because usually when they build highways, they like chop down the tree and build a
Yeah.
highway, but they kept the tree, and which I thought was also really interesting that they
Yeah.
didn't want to chop down the tree.
Yeah, if that was their
build
way
a
of
highway.
like memorializing it, I guess, but it's also there's extra ways to go to that length if you want to do that.
But see, like anyway, like the fact that like we're even discovering this history just in this conversation is just like so wild.
It's because we
right?
need to Google this stuff because we're not taught it. Like,
I know the fact that we have to like fact
if
check
this
was
was
like,
in
we're like,
if this
what's
was
going
in
on?
my A push curriculum, like I would know it. Like, I think it's
This needs to be on the AP exam.
yeah,
Like, so everybody
like I
knows.
would be cooking in that
Yeah.
FRQ, DBQ, like yeah.
But see, like if it was at least like also just incorporated into our like school system completely, like in AP exams and everything, right? Like then at least we know that we are recognized as part of the American identity. But I just think it's just hard for Asian American kids still today because we're not recognized as part of the American the building of America includes
Even though
Asian
it's
Americans.
So it was such an impactful period of time, and we learn about the gold rush, we learn about the railroads, we learn about Carnegie, we learn about all of them, but
Hello.
what about the people that impacted at the time? I don't know.
Oh, okay. Now my internet is working. All right. So, the largest lynching in U.S. history, according to BuzzFeed. And I think it's just crazy that like the narratives that were given at that time when all the riots were happening, you hear the same garbage in today's politics still today. Like I think it's crazy that like Chinese people in Florida apparently cannot buy property, real estate.
What?
Oh, you guys don't know about this?
No.
Yeah. So like there are people who like have been working in this country for like, maybe like there was this one person who was working for like over a decade and she was just about to close on a property, and then like the agent said like a bill just passed or something where she can't close.
And wait, is this a new restriction that was enforced, or is this just like something that's lasted for centuries?
No, this is a relatively new thing that's going on right now. Yeah, Chinese people cannot buy.
And like what are they basing that off of?
Like I think the understanding is that like Chinese people, because they're not Americans and they could be spies from China. Like,
Is this like Red Scare Part 2, Part 3? Like I'm so like, see, this is what gets me mad because we're talking about API history during API Heritage Month, and like there's so many people working so hard to implement what truly happened to Asian Americans throughout the past few centuries, and then there are these people that are fighting for deliberately the dehumanization of those same people. I wonder whether these specific people know of Asian American history, or whether they don't, and whether they don't and they're clueless, or they do and they just don't care. Like I hate to believe that they're just evil people like that, or
I think there's
they
an
just
agenda.
don't know.
I think there's an agenda.
But what is that
Right,
agenda
like-
run by? Like cluelessness or evil? Like literal evil?
I don't know, but I do think there's probably an agenda, and like ultimately it does impact the Asian American community, like regardless of what their agenda is.
Yeah.
Like the challenge is that
The policy is the policy. Like that is wild.
yeah,
And this is, where was the state again?
Florida.
This is all of Florida is happening?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Wow. And I had no idea this was happening.
yeah.
And we
So
don't talk about it.
I mean, like when we think about like education, just like where we're all represented and like normalized, I think it makes a huge impact because then like more people would have better understanding of how we're all Americans, right?
And maybe this wouldn't have happened, or maybe like if there was a more comprehensive like education surrounding Asian American history, there would also be like importance on why we learn this history, which is like current events.
Yeah.
So something such as like anti-Asian legislation in 2024.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. It's real. It's happening. of like, all right, like, well, let's like, what's the final note that we would want to end on? Like, I always like ending with like like a food for thought kind of thing. I think that like since the whole topic is evolving around like AAPI and history in school, yeah, like I think having some a question on that would be really meaningful for people to think about.
I feel like ending on like a note of like what can you do is kind of basic. So what should
Well, yeah, it's hard to say like what can you do when we've already established like this will like it's a lifelong thing, so I don't think it's easy to just say like what can you do, but it's like what like how can you change your mindset?
Jack was like the super realist on the podcast.
It's like how do you
Look, it's not
like-
gonna happen for like 75 years, so.
But it's like how do you change it's like how do you change your mindset so that you always think about this kind of stuff differently, because you can't just like think that you can do something in like the next year and expect it to change. So it's like how do you change yourself basically?
I think for me, like my thing is like I want like the little kids to know that there's hope.
yeah.
And they're not alone. Like they're not like because you guys are a little older now, but I remember how it felt like as a really little kid, feeling like not understood.
Yeah. I also think some specific things I hope for is number one, just more to be accessible, and like more as in like this is so like unrealistic, and Jack, you're probably gonna disagree with me, but just like more mental health resources, language resources, mental health resources that are very like, amendable to the language that, a kid speaks. Like I want not only second generation Asian Americans, but also Asian Americans who immigrated to this country to also feel that sense of belonging, and if not belonging, some sort of support.
I actually think
really it.
that's more accessible than you might think, because like mental health is like more than just like us. Like there's a lot of people who are looking for
Yeah.
mental health. I think that now it probably feels like there's more sort of acceptance around mental health. There's fewer stigmas.
Yeah.
At least in like because it's easier to
For who?
in
For
general
Asian-
in general
Oh,
no in general
But for
Yeah.
not
because
for
I
the Asian American
no
community.
I mean like resources to get mental help
Yeah.
in general,
I
because I know
think-
like in my
yeah.
health class there's like an entire unit on like mental health,
And
like,
that's
But we
so
have some
great,
Asian American
yeah.
families don't have therapists.
I think
I
that
know.
we
are
still need to come a
specific to
long,
Asian
long
American
way.
patients.
yeah, but I'm speaking like in general, like
It is more
has always
feasible.
been, but like it always was very bad. So I think if it's getting better in general, it will get better for like specific communities. Maybe not like I think it will be, maybe just 1 or 2 more generations, and then it'll be like more accessible.
I
Because
hope so too.
I do know there was a study that said on average it takes a person 10 years to get the mental health support that they would have had. Like from the time that they started experiencing trauma or whatever, it takes them around 10 years to get help for that trauma. That is a study that
Very
exists. That is a
statistical.
Okay, so
study.
John, because my husband's very statistical. I was like, Jack, like, this is something you might want to like consider. I see that you're very, very data-based.
Well, yeah.
Like,
I mean,
it's
that
gonna
is
take 75 years for like things to happen,
Yeah.
25 years for this, and then like this is like, I challenge you to step away from that because you're only using one side of your brain. You have to try to work out on the other side of the brain where none of that matters.
I think you guys
Well, I mean, like,
talking like the two different sides of my brain.
Yeah, we're like using different parts of the brain. Like
Yeah.
we balance each other out. I think
Aw,
No, but
that's
good.
cute.
But you have to do it for yourself too, right? Because
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's like
Like
it's like
hope,
a way of thinking.
hope.
It's
I
like a way
think
of thinking.
Yeah.
I think you make some very valid points of like what is feasible, what is realistic, But I also think that like if we are just going off of like what has happened in the past to directly correlate to what will happen in the future, then no change would have ever happened in the first place. And that's why I'm saying when I'm saying like, oh, I hope for like these kids to have like language access, is because of the disparities that I've experienced personally and I've witnessed. And that's why like
I can see that, but like
my disparity.
I know, no,
Yeah.
but I can see that, but like I think it's important to be realistic to set like actual goals. Like if you just say I hope this, I hope that, it's hard to like make
No,
a
yeah,
plan.
but that's what I'm saying. Like,
Like, if
there's
like-
true validity in statistics.
Yeah, I know. Like
and past,
it's
but you have to combine that with
like yeah. Well, because of course when you like, I only say like statistics because if I were to just talk about I hope like what I want to happen, like to me it's kind of obvious what the room wants to happen. Like we want like there to be more mental health support. We want there to be more education access. I'm just trying to be realistic to like keep myself grounded, but also to like set sort of a expectation because I don't want to
be disappointed.
hype. Like I don't want to like hype myself up or hype people up
No, you
thinking
have to
that
hype
there will be
yourself up
change.
sometimes.
But no. What I mean is like I don't know. It's
I get it.
you have to
I have a question
expect
for you.
something. Yeah.
Well, what does change look like for you? Like in terms of
You mean
like,
in terms of like long term or like short
for
term?
yourself, like, or for like things that matter to you? Like, do you expect like someone else to create the work and the change, and then like policies are changed, like created when someone else like starts doing the work, or like the community starts doing the work, or is it when society starts doing the work? Like,
Oh, you mean like okay. Well, I think change change like you mean on a greater level change always has to start with the individual. There always has to be like the people who believe that there can be change. So I think it's reasonable to say change would start at the individual level.
I agree.
Does that answer like what were you trying to
yeah,
get
because
at?
like I see that you're like talking about change in a way where it's like, oh, it has to be like it's gonna take time and like. So you can network. I CC'd you in the email with all of them, so you guys can start like just connecting, and he'll send out the email.
Oh yeah,
But
I'll
Haley
send
was
out the
really
email
nice.
meeting. Yeah.
Oh, my water bottle. Oh.
Oh.
Amy forgot her sweater at the
Oh.
event.
Are you in the Signal? Do you want to be added to the Signal?
Oh yeah, the Signal app. Do you have Signal messaging app?
No, but I'll
Just
get
download it.
Group
Yeah,
chat,
download
yeah.
it.
Wait. Do
So,
you want to
like-
keep this recording or not? Like, do you want to just
Oh, we have
keep
to say
running
goodbye.
it?
No, you have to say goodbye.
Oh, I do have to say
So
goodbye.
like, yeah, we should still
Okay.
keep running it. But yeah, I just like think it's really interesting that like the way you perceive like change, the way you spoke about it is it seemed as if like you expected like change to be considered change only when society made it happen. And like the whole purpose of like the bitter melon is that we're not waiting for society to like, or like even the community to like implement Asian American studies in their school system and like create like a space for Asian
Right.
Americans. We're just doing it.
I
you
understand
know?
that. Like
And-
when you speak about like one community changing, then I think change happens very fast. But I was only considering like when you think about like society as a whole, that's only when it gets slow. But like because it's not just like waiting for policy. Like you have to wait for people to die to like have change in society. But like I understand that
Yeah.
like when
it's
you
even worth thinking about like that
Well-
level of change right now. Like I feel like for the stuff that like we're doing, like it's meaningful to think about the fact that we're just able to just do that work.
I
guess,
yeah.
you
I
know?
mean,
and that's valid. You know, like if
well,
we-
then that makes sense. Like yeah, I understand. If you're talking about a community, yeah, then that's like I just interpreted it wrong, and it's then it does happen very fast. I would say because it's the smaller you get, of course, then the easier it is to
Right.
make change.
So that's like with like Westchester County right now with like the Make Us Visible, like the change is like happening pretty quickly because we're working on a grassroots level. And I think that's
We're
what's
also
really exciting.
I think we're also very fortunate to be in this type of community in the first place. I think this community is a very, like, not 100% diverse, but it is somewhat diverse.
It's getting more diverse.
It is getting more diverse.
Yeah.
People are generally very well educated. I think, it is a very good place, like, to foster, like, change. But yeah, the only reason why I said it takes a long time is because, there are places that are not like Westchester. There are places that are very different. So it takes a long time for, like, all places to change. Because not everything, like, it doesn't change all at the same time. So that's the only reason why I was saying it takes so long.
Yeah, and I don't think we want to wait for that, right? Like, that's why the Bitter Melon happened.
Yeah. Like, we want to be driving change somewhere. Like, you have to start somewhere. So that's
Right.
why, like, I do think starting somewhere is how you get the whole thing to change. But, like, the only reason why I brought up 75 years is because there's a limit to how much change we can make. There's a limit to how much change everyone can make. And so I didn't want to be,
Well,
like,
75 years is a lifetime. Like,
I know.
that's the limit. The limit
It's
is when we
five.
die.
It's 5 generations. That's 5 generations. So, but, like, the point is, like, I don't know. I don't know. That's just, like, the statistic. But yeah, I mean, we're thinking small. We're thinking small, and I think that's good.
I think we have to think small if we want to drive change, like, immediately within, like, our communities.
Yeah, and I think we are. We're doing well.
Yeah. But anyway, this was a really fun podcast session where we just, like, had open conversation, probably, like the longest.
Yeah, it was a really long time. Well, so thank you guys for listening, everyone. This has been our open conversation for the Asian American Teen Podcast. And so before we leave, we'd like to thank the Ossining Public Library for letting them use their recording materials for free. And we'd like to honor the tribe, the Lenape tribe, whose land is now known as Westchester, where we're recording today. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this podcast episode. And we will be having one more episode, I believe. One more or maybe multiple, depends on how much. Maybe depends on how much time we have. Yeah, but yeah, we'll be having at least one more. So stay tuned, and I'll see you guys next time.